Yeah, so Bleach 2000 Year Blood War Core 3. This was kind of peak, as the kids say. This was excellent. They did they just make everything really cinematic and workable. They keep most of the things that they did. They give my boy Reggie a fight. They give my boy Ishida some extra fights. Like he get two extra fights, Reggie get extra fight. Um, they basically start all the big fights. So well, the new Captain Commander, Shinsui Kiraku, he comes in and he have a big fight against the head of the Schutzstaffel. This is Lee Barrow. There's the sniper who comes in. He does his badass sniper. Then we get to see him. They keep what else, boy? They do a lot. Like it's just the main thing is that they just translate the material really well, and all the big events that we was waiting for, we get done right. And especially Shinsui's Bankai. Like that was the thing that a lot of people was waiting for. Like, what does do Bankai does look like? What about? And it is really wild. And yeah, I recommend going into that to see it for that. This was episode 35 or 36, I think. We get to see again Ishida and Renji has a brand new fight. This is an anime only fight. And then they finally did what you call the Friend Mini Arc Saga, which is this short story of basically showing the backstory of Basby and um, Hashwalt, right? And Hashwalt is the one of the main top bad guys, and they get into their backstory and how he become what he is in relation to Yuha. They have new content involving the Bambietas, the Bambis, where they come back. Well, characters who we thought was just outright dead, they come back as zombies in this. So they change like some material from the books. Like, all right, because those characters lived, but they won't. They were like subjects or not zombies. So like, all right, cool. But they changed up that whole story involving they going after Yuhabak himself because Yuhabak betrayed them by taking their power and killing all of them to strengthen the short stuff in the last arc. Uh, what else, boy? Right. Again, Ichigo gets a brand new fight against Yuha himself, and then they show off Yuha's powers because it starts off with Yuha being taken down by Ichibe, and then Yuha undoes his power with respect to that. And yeah, that's basically it. It's just uh a bunch of big changes. The new opening is great. Like they do a bunch of like great little fade-ins involving and crossfades. There's really solid stuff there. And the most controversial parts they kind of unfortunately kept. So the most controversial part is the defeat of Lily Barrow, the thing. So Matthew, if you could jump in for 2 seconds, you didn't see the end of his fight and how that fight is because it's very controversial. I think that is where how he's defeated,
Right,
and they
right.
kept that. They kept how he's defeated. It's very controversial because people thought they just call it the plot sword.
Oh, okay.
It's just this plot device that just kind of come out of nowhere, and they kept that. A lot of people didn't care for this in the manga, and yeah, they kind of kept it more or less the same. They didn't change anything. A lot of people wanted them to at least explain the sword a little better, or where it come from, and what it does, and why it's in the narrative a little better. And a lot of people think. Shout out to Mr. Tomo. Right, this guy does like a bunch of great recaps to Bleach every episode. What he'll do is just do like a watch recap and then do extended like manga speculation video like later in the week, and he has been doing this for every episode, and yeah, he has done it for each episode going forward. And yeah, so you get a lot of details with that. Like, I just strongly recommend watching this guy's videos if you want to see comparisons to the manga, comparison to thing, and then his working speculation as to what going forward. But here's the thing: this is where because they start making a bunch of big changes, and because for a lot of people the manga was unsatisfactory, um, they start making some decent changes, especially the Renji fight and whatnot. And then the final 2 episodes where they did the Friend Saga, and they just did that in one episode because that was like a good little while in the manga. They just condensed most of that and put it in one episode. They introduced a bunch of new anime only characters, so we get to see the original Schutzstaffel. And in the last episode, my mate had this Quincy Gill who had a machine gun who used against Ichibe in the flashback in episode I think 24. She
Right.
comes back. We finally get her name. Her name is Nikita Deslock, right? So all the fan base was kind of going off on Sheena, like, who's this Quincy body who real again or dreaded the past, right? She's presumably killed in the past, but we get to see what she name is. She does something real dread this time in the flashback, in the front flashback with Basby and Hashwalt. She does something. It was pretty badass. Like, goddamn, that was real dread. That episode was great, and it's just a great emotional beat for Basby and Hashwalt. I have a my fan rewrite would have changed up a little bit of that in terms of that. But like, yeah, it's still really, really solid character stuff of Ashwald, and what he does as a villain. And then yeah, they finally in the final episode, final two episodes, we get to see Ishida and Ichigo finally having a final working clash involving um, why they're doing it, and then Ishida reveals his plan, like what's going on with him, the relationship between he and Yuha, his grandfather, because they finally bring back the grandfather into the storytelling. That the grandfather was a relevant character in the first arc for Ishida, and then he was barely mentioned, if not at all, in the manga. But they finally show him and say, okay, this is what he's doing for sure. He's the one who kind of get the ball rolling in terms of the rebellion against Yuha in the Quincy thing, and they did do that. And then the final fight that's supposed to set up between him and Hashwald, with Ishida and Hashwald, because they have a similar power set. In the manga, we didn't see this fight at all, so they have to show this fight. If they inventing brand new fights, then they have to show fights we didn't see, right? They start all the big fights, so all the big final fights. One of the big final fights done, that's the defeat of Lie Barrow. But they have to show the fight against Gerard Valkyrie. That started great, and I love what they do with it. He looks good. The fight with Askin Naklava, that's a good fight. Of course, this is the dong bad moment for everybody. This is when Yorichi shows a new outfit. Is this kind of black full body bikini thing, but then she goes into cat form, and that's a whole thing. It was controversial in the amongst the fan base because the character kind of lose her consent for certain things she had to do, but a lot of people don't care for that. But hopefully they'll change it. But yeah, what they did is just set up a bunch of fights, and now this last part of the arc was by far the most controversial because it was the most rushed. A lot of people didn't like how the fights resolved again, especially Gerard. So they hopefully they'll change his fight. But they already started changing stuff for the fight. And then the characters who was left out completely in terms of like what they were doing, they get a big role now coming back into the final fight. And that is like a big change at the end. In episode 40, they finally show something involved with the visors because they were completely left out of the manga. So they just changed a bunch of stuff, but they made a bunch of great changes from a cinematic standpoint and just in terms of editing and the calls they make. Brilliant, like absolutely brilliant. This just looked beautiful. It looked great. Like especially Shinsui's Bankai, that looked great. Like what they did with it, they kind of slightly change up a bunch of things, in terms of what characters doing and whatnot. And yeah, they just made a bunch of like great like smart calls in terms of the changes, how characters should do what, do this, that, or the other. And just the look of everything, how the fights play out, how this happened. We finally get Rug Chico, if you know what that is, or Kurosaki Skin Rug. We get that shot. That's in it. Like, alright, that come true. And yeah, I as a Bleach fan, I'm largely happy with this. Right, it still didn't fully satisfy me, especially involving the defeat of Lie. I don't really care for that. Still, yeah, that it just come out of nowhere. People still mad at that. But for the most part, I am very happy with what we got involved in this arc. Core 3, and they set things up for the core 4. So yeah, well, hopefully in a year from now, well, it could be like, I don't know when it's coming out, like probably, I don't know when, like September, whenever it is, this is come out. We'll get the final arc, and that is it. That's the end of Bleach, or at least the end of the 1,000 Year Blood War arc. I know it have extra content coming with the book. The way called Spirits of Forever to or Can't Fear Your Own World. Those books have there's some extra stuff, and then it have a final, hopefully, arc that Kubo might write, but we don't know, right? But Kubo might write it, which is the the Hell arc, right? So that's it, and that'll be the end of Bleach. But yeah, this was effectively the end of Bleach up to this point. So, uh, one more core 4 coming in September. Really hyped to see it, and they end off on a good space. The final, I will say for episode 39, you'll see it when I talk it up to episode 40. It was kind of unnecessary. I felt they should take all the content that they meant for episode 40 and put it to episode 39. It should have just been up to episode 39, in my humble opinion. And then all the extra content, they could have probably dropped that or just put it as extra content later. Because they just had a big joke section at the end, and that was kind of pointless. It's kind of funny. But that's where we learn one of the characters' names. Like a character we didn't know. This is Nikita Deslock. We don't know what her name was until they reveal it here. I think that was leaked a couple days ago, but that's about it. But yeah, vibes. Bleach fans eat good. They eat good. I can't say no. Right? New arc. The ending was great. They start changing the ending. I talk about my main man Myri. He had an insane fight. With one of the Quincy's, right? So that was the two big fights. The Lily fight and Penida. That is the hand. Yeah, so I think you saw that fight, right?
Yes, I did. Even though
Right.
I kind of being quiet, though, yes, I actually saw quite a few episodes. But yeah, that one with the hand, yeah,
Yes.
caught me
While
completely by surprise. What I will say, 'cause I don't want to spoil it for those who haven't seen it, the title of that particular episode. All right, I'll just say the episode. Baby, hold your hand. That was
right.
very, very appropriate. When it's revealed at the
Yes.
very end, I was like, oh, that's why
Right.
they call it that. Okay,
That's what they call
okay,
it. That,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. That was new content too. That
okay,
flashback with that character.
all right,
That was new content. Just seeing more. We see more of the flashback. That's all we'll see. Because we just in the manga, yeah, just saw a little bit of that flashback, but they give us a little more with that flashback, and then we understand how and why that happened. And that was kind of content, just moment involving what one of the characters said. He said Mary said that he surpassed Keisuke Yorihara on this one thing. A lot of people say no, he didn't, but other people say no, he actually did. This is why, and so on and so forth. The fans is kind of bicker about this one. But yeah, he is one of my favorite characters. Like even though he's a complete sadist and psychopath, I love everything about this character. I love his character design, and then how he defeat Ponida like is a total biology thing because it makes sense now in the context of biology.
mm-hmm.
But that makes perfect sense in terms of like how things work. And again, they make a lot of great allusions to biology, especially with that character, and
Right.
me learning about biology and knowing this kind of stuff. Yeah, they make it work for what it is. I just totally happy with what they do with this. We get all the fights we want. We get extra fights. Right? That's the main thing. We get fights that like, hey, these characters should have in clash here. Oh, and yeah, shout out my boy Chad. Chad get moments though. Like what? Chad.
All right, I
Yeah,
see Chad do a
yeah,
little thing early on, but I didn't know
yeah.
he get more things. So that's great. That's great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you get a moment in the final episode. It's like, what, Chad? Well, wood. You real doing things though. Well, wood. Yeah, but it was real hard. I dug the hell out of this. This was solid stuff. All things considered, and I'm happy with it. But it still kept the controversial stuff that I felt they should have either cut or changed. Like the main one was the defeat of Lee. Lee Barrow's defeat is still a lot of people don't like it. It don't work. The flashback involvement that is great. But because they show Shinsui's background and like why he is the way he is now. But as it is, I can't be mad at this as it was. But involving Jishiro, right? The whole hand that he have the other hand of the Soul King thing, Yukitake, and how he dies. That was a big moment. But they flashed that out, and that was great. As it was. So yeah. All of that was good. But the main thing, and well, the last thing, and I have to mention, the last thing, my boy Aizen come true. That was hard. Like his revolution and what they do with him, involving him because he is very relevant later on.
Okay.
And what they
Wow.
do with that is yeah, he becomes very relevant later on because you see something involving the final battle. But I don't know what they're gonna do to change it because they look like they're gonna make a lot of big changes. So I don't know if they're gonna change that fight itself, right? But that fight was still one of the highlights of the arc in the final arc, for a lot of people. So he gonna become relevant because he does have a moment where he just kinda coasted on them and real flexing on them with the spiritual pressure thing. Because he say, well, you had to use the spiritual pressure. Good God that well they can't do that now. They had to use the normal powers like shitty people now. But he's so strong in the storyline. But yeah, I am happy with this. I am very happy with this. As a Bleach fan, Bleach fans eat. We get some good stuff, really, really good moments. Great character stuff. They bring back characters who just completely left out. They're showing them still. Like, all right, they're gonna give them some more stuff. And yeah, I largely happy with this. Yeah, rating. Yeah, a bias, but 10 out of 10. Yeah, but
10.
like,
Okay, I thought it was going to give it
yeah,
like a
the real
9 or
score,
something, bro. Okay.
the real score is like an 8 out of 10. Because I still had some problems with the storytelling.
Right. Now, but I mean, you're a fan. You're a diehard fan. You know the manga more than me anyway, so.
Exactly, but they give us more than we expected. No? Like they give us way more than like what this character got fight and this is all this new content that recontextualizing the situation and like fleshing out and thinking and I still we think we gonna get more, but I'm happy with what we got as it is. Yeah, rated 10 out of 10. That's just me as a Bleach fan being biased. So whatever, moving on.
All right. Well, for me personally, as we move on, now knowing that there's a fourth and final cour coming up next year, hopefully, now this gives me the excuse to do something that I've always wanted to do ever since I heard about the 1,000-Year Blood War and it actually being its own series. Yeah, go back to the very beginning. I've always been meaning to go back to the very beginning because yes, in the 2000s I used to watch Bleach alongside Naruto, and then I chose Bleach over Naruto because it's Bleach. But that was years ago, so that's why for me when I jumped into 1,000-Year Blood War, it was always like, all right, I have to remember this character, I have to remember this bank, I have to
Right.
remember this relationship and that, right?
Right.
So I knew the faces and some of the names or whatnot, but like I didn't know, I have to remind myself of these things. But like in your case,
Right.
you know the manga, that's your advantage. So you know what to expect and you know what came before. So for me now,
Right.
I have an excuse just to go all the way to the beginning. And then maybe if I have the time, I'll read a manga. I'll read it. Yeah.
Right. I would recommend so in my humble opinion, even though I don't hate the fillers of Bleach, I think the Bleach fillers aren't that bad. Skip the fillers. They can skip pretty much all the fillers or most of them. They have one thing in one of the fillers, as the Zanpakuto Rebellion arc, that it became canon. So there was something that was in a filler, and it became canon.
Okay.
Yeah, that is the involving Shinsui. That's all you need to do.
Right.
But that's about it. That was in the manga. It wasn't in the manga ever. It was in the anime. And then Kubo drew it in the manga, making it canon later. Like, oh shit, that thing that wasn't canon is now canon though. Like,
Wait. So Kubo like literally retold the story, but in manga form.
But
after it was
that's
aired, right?
the thing. But that's the thing. That's what he does. The fillers was always his consultation anyway. That's why the fillers never felt all that bad, because it just felt like more like scrapped ideas.
Right.
All of it always felt like it came from him now, ideas wise, right? But it clearly felt like, undercooked or scrapped ideas. And the same thing with the Thousand Year Blood War in the manga. From what I understand, I don't know the full details, but from what I understand, he was suffering from health issues, so that's why the manga didn't turn out as well as it could have. But now he get a chance, years later, get to think about it, get to, flesh out the ideas. It's roughly some of the same structure, but get to flesh them out. Because that was the biggest complaint about the manga anyway. It's like, they could have fleshed things out. That was the complaint, right? It just needed fleshing out. It just rushed. It needs fleshing out. That's the biggest complaint, and then we're gonna get that. That's it. And we basically got that with these first three cores, especially core 3. So core 3 and core 4, the last parts of the manga, especially when you had took over and took down the Zero Squad. That was the big thing. And then we get the full fight to the Zero Squad. We get all of that. So it's like, alright, cool. That's what we had to do. Just flesh it out and we'll be happy, That's it. That's it, and that's what we get. Can't be mad.
Alright, cool. No problem. Yeah.